This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Tristan Tom, who is a puppeteer and activist and a collaborator with Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine. Welcome, Tristan.
Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate having you invite me to be on. I really appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you because it seems like there's so much involved in putting a show like that together. There's the collaborators, the art, everything, and it looks very very professional and very beautiful. It's how did
Oh,
you
thank you.
first? Thank you. How did you first become involved in puppetry?
Well, honestly, I've been starting out as a fan as a little kid, growing up with, things like Mr. Rogers was a huge hit home for me. And of course, everybody's favorite, Sesame Street. And then as years passed, my father was my art teacher. He incorporated certain puppet styles, just hand puppets, into into his curriculum for our classes when I was little. Then after getting into costume design, which I've been doing for the last 16 or so years,
Oh,
in the early 2000s, I took a touring job with One Sesame Street Live. And so that got me involved in wanting to know more. And then when I moved to the city, I got to work with a wonderful woman named Cookie Gluck of Cookie Gluck Designs. And she really taught me some different styles of how to make mascots. So I kind of combined the two and I make, I don't want to say life size, but for lack of better, life size, smaller puppets that I hold dear to my heart because they all have different personalities that I've given them. But I found my way to my own show after that, from touring and from working here at some different theaters involved with puppetry. Like back in the day, there used to be a Red Moon Theater. That's kind of where I got started here, just kind of popping in to help on some of their puppets, but I was front of house at the time. So they just saw that I could help. And then in 2005, I created my own puppet, not 2005, 2015, sorry. I created my own puppet workshop for kids, and we did our own puppet camps. I did for the Life Learning Center, which is the Women Children's Domestic Abuse and Skill Center here in Rogers Park on Morse there. And I worked with the nuns and the children, and we had that first year and had a great time. And that got me started to create my own show, because they're writing for, the kids wrote for their own show, and that got me sparked to write my own stuff. And so by 2017, we were selected for Pride Films and Plays Performing Arts Center's children's summer programs. And so we performed for what was only going to be 4 weeks, a different show each week. And then afterwards, after that, it's just kept going since 2017. And we've been doing classroom settings and the theater setting, of course, libraries. It's meant to be set up anywhere live. Small intimate spaces work well, and then also large venues too. We even created a special birthday party for people to do over Zoom during our pandemic time. So it really has kind of run in all different directions. But I've been involved with puppetry and for a very long time, and I'm very fortunate to work with some other talented puppeteers that I get to learn from myself. I love to work with other people because even as an almost 43-year-old person, I still love to learn, whether it's from an 8-year-old or someone who's older than me or same age. So,
Well,
yeah.
everybody has different perspectives, and then you could put them together. For instance, you said you talked about Cookie Gluck, and for mascots, it seems as if, come to think of it, a lot of the mascot faces, the cute ones, have that cookie feel to them. So is that kind of part of it?
Oh, no, I had years ago, I had worked for her prior to starting my own thing. And so seeing how she created these mascots, was like, if I pared them down, I could make smaller, usable, almost puppet-like things. And so they kind of advanced into puppet. I call it, they're kind of like a sculpted puppet. So it's my own take on things, I guess. But she got me a little started back into that since her mascot building is so similar to building a puppet.
Mhm. And for Grandma D,
Yeah.
which of your collaborators helped in making her? Because she is very unique.
Yes. So I created all of the puppets, and a wonderful person named Jamie Black actually voices the puppet of Grandma D. And so they really bring the spirit of, oh, sorry, they're working on the road outside. It brings the spirit of the character, this loving, everybody has or should have a grandmother in their life that even in their past that they look up to, that they respect, that love them more than anything. Because it started out as grandmas give the best hugs. And so the show that I developed, I wanted to be interactive. So for those children who didn't really have great homes, they could count on this particular grandmother to come see the show and then get a hug or to interact with at the end of the show. Because I have found that puppets are an extension to a children's soul. You will see a child interact with Grandma D that they will not do for you and I. And that is from being a happy, silly little child to telling a puppet their secrets. And I noticed that as a teacher, I saw that happening too when I would use my puppets in class, that they would talk to them as if they were friends and not look at them as toys or floppy, fun little things on fluffy little objects.
Right. So when when your little audience tries to confide to Grandma D, then how do they go about doing that?
Honestly, because the puppeteers in the beginning, they've been told, like the kids in audiences could potentially ask questions. There's a portion of the live show where the children actually get up are chosen, or if they raise their hand to get up to come help one of the characters and Grandma put objects into our magic book machine that spits out the book that we read. So there are some interactive portions within that allow for almost an improv type situation. And these excuse me, these are professional performers. So a lot of them have that improv, like be able to think on their feet type of especially with kids, because they come up with the craziest questions or they want to go on and on with a story and stuff. So you have to be able to move on. Well, I'm sitting here yakking away, so it's just very much similar, like moving on to the next topic, kids.
Do you remember any of their most engaging questions, the most ridiculous questions, but it's so meaningful?
One that sticks out, I I did and this one I just did as a goodbye for my last day for a classroom that I had with this very special class. And
Mhm.
I enjoy all my kids as a teacher, but this was special. And I brought I brought the puppet in for the last day as a surprise. And so these kids who, excuse me, during snack time, during the rest of the year I would periodically play my show. It's a little 10-minute thing or 20 minutes that they would watch. So when the end of the year came and we did this, I surprised them outside with one of the puppets who they really like, Ash, and my puppeteer came up to help. And the kids, they wanted, when asked to talk about their favorite books, Ash asked about their favorite books. Most of them were saying, like just Julian is a mermaid, or oh gosh, I'm blanking right now, but just very many stories that we shared throughout the year. And so one of the children raised his hand, and he asked Ash if he could talk about his book that he read, and without fail, Ash just says, of course. And this little boy, he starts telling the story, and he keeps telling. So it was just this really long story that we were trying to follow, but it's an 8-year-old really excited to talk to a puppet. So we were getting lost, and it was fun. It was really fun. So that was a great experience, was being able to involve my own class within interacting with the puppet. So that was great.
Exactly. And in those interactions, did you get inspiration for future storylines?
I will say this. I had one child that identifies with some of what we talk about at a very early age. And so I have to remember that I'm really affecting little kids too, not just entertaining. They're getting a message out of what is being said. Children are very perceptive, even from an early age. This is why I started at 2 years old, because you can teach empathy at 2 years old. They understand. So when I created these puppets and created the storylines, I wanted everybody to be able to find one characteristic or one little thing that they could hold on to from at least one of the characters. And I feel as though with the feedback I've gotten from my own class and just with other people online, that I seem to be doing that. And though not taking specifically from my children's lives or anything like that, I do try to play to what's going on in their own lives, which I saw a lot of what happens in their homes coming into the classrooms. So I may use small snippets of that, but not specifically anybody's own personal home lives. Yeah.
So when you try to teach the kids empathy, how receptive is the whole class? Because sometimes there might be bullies. Do you ever find that because you presented your show and interacted with the kids, that some of the bullies, maybe you could perceive that they are kind of bullies because of how they react? Do you see any change come over them?
And you're talking through seeing through my puppets if there's change, is that what you're saying?
Actually, your audience, because you're trying to make sure that you're trying to teach empathy to your audience, and then
Yes.
some of the audience might not have that empathy to begin with, and then how do you see the change come over? Do you perceive that?
Yes. So with my show, it's including how you were just talking about those stories of my children, it in my classroom, it might be that I use some of the same things that I would use in my class techniques to calm students. We have certain points in the show where, for instance, when I'm in my classroom, we learned to talk it out with one another. They weren't just going to come run to Mr. T every time to, so-and-so did this. We would mediate. And so it's talking it out and really trusting that these little kids understand. If you find the right language, anybody can understand. So if you're using simple language for little kids, you could even say as much for taking that same simple language and applying it to adults as well. It's very easy. It's just whether or not you want to make the change. So where kids see everybody else making the change when they, oh, that isn't right, that puppet hurt that other puppet. Oh, I did that to Diego earlier. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't. And then I'll find, granted, this is in my classroom too, so that's where my experience is, but inevitably with our mediation table, the three boys would go and sit down and talk it out without having me to sit there. But with the puppets, or as well as with the puppets, they hear the message, and it's just like anything with repetition, it's including it in your life. So the message that's there for anti-bullying or to help a friend who might have been bullied to just either calm down, to see what's wrong. They're just these small intimate moments besides the zaniness of everything that people can pull those messages to might be able to maybe be able to use in their own life. A parent taking that same chunk of what happened with Grandma and Ash and whatever happened to Ash and the bully at school, and taking that and applying it to their own life in a way, because like I said, puppets touch differently to kids. So even if they were to roll back and say, honey, I need you to watch this, it's going to stay in their mind more than if you and I are going to be in front of a blackboard going, this isn't the right thing, don't do this, right? If you have a puppet suggesting something, or like, oh, we wouldn't want to feel that way, would we? It's putting the shoes on the other puppet's foot, basically, So, yeah, that helped.
Where did you learn to teach? What school?
Oh boy. Well, I will say this. I went to school for communication studies and theater back in the day. And then midway through all that, realized that I had a different knack, which was teaching. So I actually went back to get my credits way later on in life to come back. And so I've been in the classroom for going on 10 years now. And before that, I basically, with directing and being a kid and lifeguarding, babysitting, and being aide in schools as a younger person, I've really worked with children in all facets. I got this, I don't know, children just flock to me to want to be able to tell their story sometimes. I had a unique experience working with a special camp out west in Wyoming. And especially during this month of Pride, they would be crawling out of the woodwork just to come down and hang out with Tristan in the costume shop and whisper, can I talk to you? Of course. My mom would be mad if I told, you can tell me anything and nothing leaves this room. So I had a lot of instances like that where kids, even younger kids, they need to talk. And so I tried to put this in a puppet so that they still felt, at least they, like they feel at ease talking to somebody who's either if they're not comfortable talking to me, they might be comfortable talking to the fluffy poodle on my hand, you know.
Mhm, mhm. And sometimes when you're doing the puppet shows, there's more than you have your collaborators there too. And
Yes,
and then the kids are comfortable in talking with all of you then.
correct.
Mhm,
Yeah, there has been, I have my first, we have one cast member from from 2017. So we have picked up some others along the way.
mhm.
And I've created another character that I'm actually looking to cast, as well as for a writer too, the co-writer. So it's just it's been interesting to work with all of these people, because like I said before, we really like to learn from one another, and they are trained puppeteers. And though I make puppets and though I've worked with puppets, I don't particularly call myself a puppeteer. I call myself a
Oh,
puppet artisan, or a puppet artist, because I make them and yeah, I use them. But these people have a background that's what they do. So I am grateful for each one of their talents and their voices that lends the characters their personalities. And I have to also thank my partner and my two roommates at the time, Mike and Erwin. If you noticed on our YouTube page, the little snippets are actually filmed from during pandemic. So those are not our trained puppeteers. Those are literally my partner. Those are literally my partner and my roommates voicing directing us as well. So it was fun, because they're not standard puppeteers, but they did one heck of a job putting together those 50 shows in 65 days. So
wow.
yeah, wrote every night. It was crazy.
And what was your audience for those shows every night? How did you send it out to direct to which audience?
Well, I was fortunate. I created those because during pandemic, they said we could stay on at the school that I worked at if we turned in paperwork for the kids to keep doing at home with the parents. And so I was like, oh, I could print off Pinterest stuff and this and that and send it in and be easy. Or I could put on full productions, I guess.
Mhm.
And so instead of going what would be considered an easy route, I chose to entertain my family and my families and kids from school. So they put them out to all the five, I think the school district that I worked in, it's public-private. So I think they have 4 or 5 different schools. So that's where those went out to specifically, besides just being posted online. Mhm.
Wow, that was unique.
Wasn't it?
There probably wasn't anyone else doing what you were doing then.
Not a lick, no. I had
Mm.
one other teacher who was doing, they're like, oh, I'm gonna do like Mr. T, I'll do a story time, but they just, and it was good. I mean, I'm not begrudging them anything. They really worked hard on their stories and stuff. So I'm glad that there were others. Mhm.
Mhm. And it was your dad that mostly taught you how to make the puppets?
I would have to say that's where I got my start.
Mhm.
Kind of, it was hand sewing back then, but I learned that probably from him, the hand sewing. Yeah, I think from him as well, honestly. So
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
Besides hand sewing, what is there like machine sewing?
Oh
What's the
yeah,
difference?
yeah. I do a lot of machine sewing. Honestly though, with bases and stuff, I have, because of the rounded edges, and I'm literally sculpting the skin on the actual foam. So it's a
Wow.
little difficult to hand sew sometimes. If something bubbles, so I'll go in or excuse me, to machine sew, it can be hard. So I'll go in and hand sew those corner edges and things to make them rounded. Mhm.
How long does a puppet last? Does it undergo a lot of wear and tear?
Yes, and I have to do a lot of Grandma gets some facelifts once in a while. And, you know, certain parts of the body here tend to rip with the arm that's always used to point the puppet's hands to directions and just to gesticulate with them and stuff. So under here, under the pits, they tend to like rip. And so it's constant fixing.
Mhm. And the puppet is made of what? Mostly fabric, and the moving parts, is the wood that makes them move?
Most are either like this really harder type of foam, or some people use wood on the joints. I do not use wood. But I use mostly like harder foam or foam core, and then cotton-based products or Lycra. I will say this, another unique thing about my show, everything on the set, barring one character, has been made from recycled materials. The poodle itself, if you remember back in the 60s and 70s, they used to make these matching, like for the back of the toilet, and then around the floor, there would be a matching rug. Well, the poodle is actually made out of the back of one of the backs of a toilet back cover from back in the day. Grandma D is a fitted sheet, a fleece fitted sheet. Brandon was one of the characters, was donated fabric. All of the magic book machine stuff came out of a theater that was being organized at the time. So I really try to, for what we do, put back in by showing what else we could do, which is recycle. So I try to include all of these really important messages with wherever I can.
And the subject matter is mostly concerned with LGBTQ, and then also difficulty in life situations, like addressing like awkwardness, etc. And just tell the audience a little bit about how you choose your subject matter.
Sure. I really look at the book first. Towards the end of the pandemic, I will admit, though, it was kind of like, oh, I'm running out of books. So there are a few that don't really go with the scheme of things, but we made them work into it because they still had good messages and we could tie them together. So I really do focus on the message from the book first. And then I try to go in polar opposite so that people don't go, oh, well, that's clearly they're just mimicking what the book they read does. So I have to think beyond the book and create something that has really nothing to do with the book other than maybe the message. So we're not going to have even the same colors or anything within what we're talking about. So not to confuse kids. And then also, I don't want to take away from the book by including it in my own storyline, because that's not fair to the author, either. A lot of these storylines are personal to me, frankly. And yes, you mentioned it. It's very LGBTQ plus friendly. I don't know if I mentioned, but the cast is predominantly queer. The lead characters, one of them is transgender, that does an amazing job. All of my storylines come from what I see in the hallways of those little classrooms that I was telling you about. All of these kids, no matter what age group, go through some sort of bullying. Even the bullies get bullied, right? They might not have the best home life at home. Mom might not be the best. Dad might not be the best, whatever the situation is. But we also not necessarily focusing on overall expansive queer messages, because even families who identify who don't identify queer, or their children don't, they are still able to get messages of kindness. And look, there, it's not an overtly, that's not all we're talking about. It's very much, it's about being good people. And yes, I also want representation for these little trans kids who are out there, but people are just not willing to, hear, talk, or see these beings, and they need representation. And though I am not Black and I am not trans, I want to be able to help give a voice to those who are and who are not being shined a light on. I remember being queer in rural South Dakota and having to hide myself, and for fear of being hurt. And I just, as a teacher now, I want to do as much as I can when I see kids like how I was being bullied, or trying to figure out now, what is it that makes that bully tick? Like, why does, so I try to come from it from all angles to see how we can heal over everything. And so I try to come from it from that. What would I have needed back then to heal, to be able to work beside that bully and still maintain my dignity as a 5-year-old, they have dignity too, they have the respect that they deserve. And so by coming up with these plots and these characters, I really wanted to bring home that these messages of hope, these messages of kindness, that we can all get along, that we're all different but the same, as long as we're willing to just learn about each other. It can be fun too, and that all families are different, and that's great. I love to celebrate differences rather than everything that's the same, because then, like I tell the kids, that wouldn't be very much fun, right?
Exactly. How receptive are the schools? Do you have any difficulties in bringing your program to some schools, or are they all accepting if you approach them?
No, actually, they're early, because of the storylines that are meant to. The storybooks that are meant to be for early years, anywhere between 2 or even like 5 on up. I've used some older books that it's hit or miss if the younger kids might be able to get it. They can still associate with the colors and get that. But I will admit some of the books are for like 5 and up, but I try to make work for 5 and below as well. So, but I try to try to stay with a theme that the audience will be able to follow, and with this, and that they will find not just entertaining, but they might be able to use in their own classrooms. So I set up within the performances what in early childhood are called milestone markers. Moms probably and dads probably know about this too. So that as a teacher, you have to document everything in early years for, and so I wanted to create for the live show specifically those points, so that when teachers came in and if they sat down with their students, they could watch their students, like I was telling you, they can interact with the puppets and this and that. So it gives those moments to actually document for the teacher. So I gave the teacher something too as well, for them to be able to take back to their class to use, for them to recall, for little ones to recall. It's very important for the teeny tinies to be able to recall that. So that's how they remember the messages that we taught them. So I try to give as much info to the teacher so that they have stuff to work with too, because I know what it's like to be a teacher like that.
Are there kids that, let's say some of the kids don't understand the message or don't understand the program as well, are
Sure.
they comfortable with asking you what they don't understand?
I'm trying to think. I haven't had anything like that specifically come up. It's mostly just been a lot of comments about either like, I like this, or what, if it is, it's like, why did she turn that way? She was looking at me. Why did she turn away? And oh, she was talking to the other puppet. She needed to turn away.
Mhm.
But they still, like I said, they respond as though grandma or Fifi or any of the characters are not attached to a human. They think it's also a person. There's that suspension of disbelief. Even the older kids who are like 7, 8, and 9, they know that it's attached to a human, right? But for just those instances of interaction, that goes out their head, and they are responding and talking to them, and not jokingly, like say an 11 through 14 they're still getting the message, and they're still responding to the puppets as though the smaller children would. So it's very interesting to see each age demographic like respond the way that they do. So that's
Do
what I've
you,
experienced.
well, then, do you have any audience members, the young kids that become so engrossed in your production that they want to join in and be part of the creative process?
Yes, I've had a couple little kids, specifically one who was a student, because I also, like I was mentioning, I did the puppet program, which was they got to make their own puppets, create a storyline, and then perform it for their friends and family at the end of the summer camp. And so just with getting him involved in that, that was already something that by the end of the, Mr. T, can I come over? And I'm like, sure, James, no problem. We'll get this handled. You can be part of this, but probably not till you're older. Oh, but you said you were looking for kids. And I was like, I am, but it's actually an adult who's going to play the voice of a kid. Oh, well, maybe someday then? I'm like, maybe someday, all right? I'll definitely have you come over and you can watch me make one. And so it's it's like that, because kids, they see a puppet and they just want to be involved naturally. But him more so than most, I would have to say. It was a cute moment.
Mhm. Well, maybe he will come back in the future. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be great if later
Yeah.
on, all of a sudden, he's some master puppeteer in 20 years? That'd be great.
Or maybe he'll just come and visit you and say
Hey,
that, you know what I'm doing right now.
yeah, I'd appreciate that too.
Is there any specific way that you choose the books that are featured in your Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine shows?
At first, I was looking for messages that were that kind of were for everyone, but I wanted to hopefully have them be written or about LGBTQ people. So there are quite a few that are written by queer folks. There are also like many that are not. I found a lot of books that kids can identify with, and that's all kids. Some of their favorites, they don't even realize are specifically about, say, transgender. Like we read this one called I Am Red. It is the most amazing storybook, and there is barely any words. It's beautiful, and you don't have to get the message that is meant to be there, but you end up taking other messages home just by the artwork. It's just amazing. The author, wish I could think of their name, but also I do use, if you know, Leslie Newman was a huge author for little kids books, and she's done a lot of queer family books. And so I really enjoyed her strengths, and could use a lot of what she put into her books to kind of, like I was saying, be the same as what we're talking about, but also then go polar opposite of what the story was, so that we could meet up at the end to have a lovely end that tied up our book with our problem at the beginning of the story, our plot line at the beginning of the show. So
Yes.
yes.
How, by what means did you use to promote the Grandma Dee and the Magic Book Machine?
Honestly, it's mostly been online presence. And then beyond that, it's been, when we first did it, it was just in-house marketing for that first year, but it's mostly been my online, and then from there, just reaching out from within the school, or just mostly, very honest, online has been our predominant marketing.
Mm-hmm. So how much, could you tell us how much you received for the individual artist program?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm very excited about that. I applied for that earlier this last year, and we got a $3,000 grant. So I'm very excited to be able to showcase these wonderful performers and the stories that we bring to Chicago and the world over. So that way we can get the messages of empathy and compassion, acceptance of others and ourselves out there, so that little ones know that they're going to be okay and they're just like everyone else, right?
Yes, congratulations to you. You deserve it so much. So with that grant, were you able to move the story, the work, extend the work beyond the school so that it reaches a wider audience? Because I think it seems as if some of these programs, a lot of these programs could be applicable to the adults as well, especially with like an entire family going to the show.
I will say, and I'm probably doing a lot of the way I reach out incorrectly, but I have reached out to, because I think that as well, and I think it'd be important. I would love to be involved with the Chicago Public Library system, and I've reached out to Jessie up here at our library in 49th. She's an amazing librarian. I can't rave enough about her. But the people up top are not ones for responding, I guess, as quickly as the librarians. So though I've been trying to reach out to them and public schools and things like that, it's been hit or miss on that end of things to be contacted.
And you did say that those 4 or 5 schools that you have your program in, are those private schools or are private public?
Private public, yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's like half and half, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know how that goes. It's I guess you would say it's private, but they get public funding.
Charter schools, maybe, right? Are they charter schools?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes, correct.
And in what neighborhoods are they? Are they in Rogers Park or in the
Rogers and Andersonville, in that area? Mm-hmm. I guess it'd be Edgewater, Andersonville, and mm-hmm. Rogers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is it going to be expanding in the near future?
I'd like to think so. We're just shopping for places that, and that can be, it's just getting out there to different locations, coffee shops, daycares, theaters, schools that are wanting and needing the message of empathy and just being kind to one another, which I think that's something that's important, especially now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that I was just gonna say that most schools really need and are missing. So,
mm-hmm. are you booked for any school so that our listeners would know, and then they would maybe go?
Currently, no. The fall is
Oh,
kind of empty, but I was hoping that this might be something that will help us get
mhm,
ahead. It's been a lot of, oh, we're not doing this a la, we're not letting people into the buildings that aren't our students, things like that because of COVID. So now that I'm hoping with restraints being taken away, that maybe there might be a little bit more of an ability to get into these schools and places.
mhm. So during the pandemic, that actually helped you put through those 50 videos because they needed the like online
Yeah,
programming.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so they could use them to watch as part of their classroom time with their parents at home, so they would maintain consistency. And that way, as I also appeared on the video with them on occasion, they would have that consistency of being able to see their teacher in there as well. So it covered a couple of things, because during that time, you know, imagine being an adult, or as an adult, we were scared. Imagine being a little one, not knowing what mom and dad were scared of, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or grandma, or whoever you're living with, you know, was your family. Whoever was scared, that adult presence. The child was also scared too. So it's just making sure that we're not not leaving them out too. So.
If teachers wanted to use your videos, those
Mhm.
program, that whole set of programming, would they be able to get it from you to use in their classroom?
Oh, I have no problem doing that. And they're also on YouTube
Mhm.
with Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine.
Right.
But yeah, that's that I encourage it. But I did have a couple of my teachers that are in different, or excuse me, I don't want to say co-teachers, but my other co-workers in the
Mhm,
school building that I worked in, they also used it a couple times too.
mhm,
Just like I said, it's great to like settle kids down for a snack time, you know, type of a thing. So they're
mhm,
just watching that while they're eating their cookie and milk or whatever.
mhm. Because I think that I don't know if it's accurate or not. I think I saw 18 videos on your channel, but you said that there might have been like about 50 programs over 65
There's,
days.
yeah, there was 50 and 65 days. And
Mhm.
I think with between there was, the thing about it is there was some live ones that were shot. So
Oh,
those might not be on that page. They would be on my Facebook page. So
oh.
yeah, we were finding that the live ones were doing quite well at the time, but it was also making me anxious to do live shows. So I only did a very
Mhm.
short amount of them. But yeah, so there are some, they just might be on the Facebook page as opposed to the YouTube page as well.
What we found, because we do a lot of this video editing, etc.
Sure.
There's a program that in which you could download your Facebook videos for free, and then once you download those videos, you could upload them to your YouTube so that you have a more complete set on your YouTube.
Oh my goodness. You
Yeah, I'll
learned.
have to.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Oh, thank you. I honestly didn't know that. Like,
yeah. We'll try to find the name of the program and then send it to you, in which
oh,
you could actually download your videos off of Facebook. You could download other people's videos off of Facebook as well. That will
thank
help you
you.
make, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank you, Trudy.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see. How do you think Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine has brought about some change?
Um, I'm going back to my experience with what I saw in my class real briefly. But I I had a couple different kids who would be like who would recall the show and say, well, that's not how it happened earlier. That's not what grandma said. And I couldn't honestly believe that they recalled something from earlier that morning. And so it's it is something that I hold on to, that the storylines are that they're just going to recall. Yes, to you and I, it doesn't seem like, oh, well, they recalled it at 4 p.m. Yeah, that's a lot for a little kid. For a 5-year-old, they go through a lot during the day. So to recall a 10-minute video that had something about being kind to your person, your friend, and they recall it later on the day, then that's it's a remarkable thing for me as a teacher. And then on the outside of things, I've had parents and friends of friends' parents contacting me and saying, thank you. My child was able to sit still for an actual full 10 minutes and pay attention to your show. She doesn't do that. So I know that these are small little markers, but to me, they're everything, because it's even if it's that one little girl who sat still for 10 minutes to learn kindness, or to see that too over the top all the time, running around and things. This moment, she's calm for a second. That's great that we caused that.
Right. That's actually a very, very significant achievement, because to have some like to have a child actually think of your creation as something that's valuable, something that the child could relate to as like a real person. That's a real significant achievement, because that performance wasn't that long. The videos are like about maybe anywhere from 10 to 17 minutes. That would be about the same time. That would be exactly the same time, right? For the programming as well, like that you show to the kids.
The live shows and the ones that are shot, that are just 2 to 3 people that we shot during the pandemic, those are shorter. We have the longer staged versions that also I want to film, but the longer ones that we do out in public that are 45 minutes long. We don't want to make it any longer than that, because again, they're 2 to like 9 or so. So you've got this, especially in today's day and age where everybody's on their phone and we got to do this now and this, there's just, there's not a lot of keeping everybody together. So this is one of those unique, one of these unique things that show that does that offers an opportunity for these kids to all kind of be able to connect, I guess.
Yes, that's wonderful. Those Facebook lives, are those the ones that you mentioned are about 45 minutes long?
No, the Facebook live ones were just the same amount, anywhere between 8 to like 27 minutes, I think. I think that's the longest one, is like 27 or something like that.
Okay.
Not quite a half hour. And the other ones, like we include music in the, which is written by this amazing singer-songwriter, Mariah Gamage. And she does like she did like the intro, the outro, and then she does our, like if you look on one of the Grandma D Facebook pages, it has, or maybe, yeah, I think it's that one that has, it's Be Yourself, because there's no one else like you. I'm just so grateful to have such creative cohorts, because there's no way I could have come up with anything that she does, because she's just an amazing creative light.
Yes, you're talking about the song that starts off the Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine.
Yes.
And the ending.
Yes. And
it's
then
very beautiful.
Oh, I was talking about the Be Yourself. It's just featured in one area on the Grandma D and the Magic Book Machine Facebook page, or it might be the Tristan Tom Designs one, I forget. But it's at the top, and you can play it, and it's just, she's so good. I can't rave enough about her. And it really has a message that sends it home for little LGBTQ kids. That to be yourself, because there's There's no one else like you. And there isn't.
Right. There is, right, exactly. And that's the post that you pinned on the top of the Facebook page, right? I think it was
Correct.
from
Yep.
1921
Yeah,
or
it's from a few years
2021 or
back.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yes.
from a few years ago.
Uh,
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Let's do community assessment with you. WZRD Chicago, being a nonprofit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment community-focused programming, and we like to assess the community for these quarterly issue topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you?
Within my community.
Within your heart, I think.
Oh, then I'm gonna still answer it with that. Within my heart is my community. I believe in my community because we look out for one another. I make it a point that to showcase community, because without it, our society would not exist. We have to depend on one another, and without that, there's just a severe breakdown, and kids can see that too. Whether it's teachers not getting along or whatever the case may be, they pick up on all sorts of things. So in community, it's also watching out around you, because you have what you're saying is affecting others, which might be children. And so you have to just constantly be thinking, what am I saying that might be affecting these kids? Because we're modeling what people should be like, whether it's kind and empathetic, or the polar opposite of somebody who's hateful or is doing the things like they're doing against women right now, nasty things that we have to just be truthful to kids, but also let them know in a way that's easy for them in language, so it's that they can understand. Because like I keep saying, kids can understand things, you just have to find the right language for them. And so by watching out for your community, your neighbors rather, in your community, and then making sure that you are taking care of those kids in a way by modeling being a good citizen out in your neighborhood, or be it at a restaurant or wherever you're at, just because, as that song from Into the Woods, be careful what you say, children will listen. And so with that, that's the positive and the negative. And so I take that wherever I go with how I write and how we perform. We have to be careful, because these kids are the next us. They, and I want to leave the world a better place than what we came into it as. And by carrying on with kindness and empathy and treating others like how we all deserve to be treated, and showing kids that, that's what I believe in, that and community.
What long-term problem must we address?
I think that it would be just in general, I think right now is such a difficult time, and I feel as though there are so many different things that need to be cared for. And with things being so tense in politics, I myself don't include that in my stories or anything like that, specifically with political themes. However, there are certain things that we can pull from within the nastiness that's going on now, or oftentimes I share stories of racism and bigotry, because that ultimately is what I have felt myself throughout my entire existence. And I know that other queer people, and I know Black and Brown and Indigenous and Asian and anyone who is just non-stereotypical white, straight, rich, old man. And so by talking to others and opening a dialogue through puppetry about race and bigotry towards queer kids, it allows for there to be a voice out there for others to go, oh, well, maybe there's another person out there that feels the way that I do. Oh, there's a whole show that talks about, or whatever the case may be. Just getting out there. Once you find out that there's somebody else out there like you, it's a complete load off. And so I feel as though with everything that's going on right now, people are finding solace in others who are like them, but in positive ways, not like in negative aspects as of cheering on other people's sadness or demise. You know, that's not what America is.
Right, we understand you.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, what problem must be resolved now?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
What problem must be resolved now?
Right now, I think going back to just the empathy towards one another, we have to look at one another, well, not even look, we just have to feel like my grandmother would say, put the shoe on the other foot, you know, like, even if I'm a straight person and I see that they are ailing, I'm going to feel sorry for them because I've gone through that. Even if I didn't, I guess it's just natural for me to feel for another person. And I feel like I see currently that is lacking in society, be it on the L train and people pushing through or not saying, excuse me anymore or whatever. Not that that's a big deal, because that's where we're at in life, but just the simple things that go by the wayside of just checking in with one another, not even your friend, just you see somebody, that's what builds community. Yeah, don't talk to strangers, I understand that, but also you see this person walking by you every day in your neighborhood. Every morning you pass them and they're usually smiling. Maybe say hi today, maybe stop for a second and go, hey, how you doing? You know, it's just, again, building community by creating just that, opening a dialogue, and that's talking it out. Like I was telling you earlier, by making those little kids sit down and mediate one another, they talk through it. It's the same for adults. If we were willing to sit down and talk things out, or at least hear each other's stories and go, you know, that was a lot like how I did this. It might start to rub off on people a little bit, and they might, at least I hope for empathy amongst adults as much as I'm seeing and amongst the kids that I teach and that I'm putting these shows out there for.
Well, Tristan Tom, it seems as if you have gone very far since those programs of yours, for 50 of them reached 4 to 5 schools, and that is a significant achievement. And you are living empathy, so you are spreading empathy, and we really appreciate that from you. Tristan Tom Designs and educator. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited that you asked me. I appreciate it so much. I have goosebumps right now. I look forward, and I hope I can bring my puppet pals back and we can have a conversation with them too.
Absolutely. And if you can, maybe you could stage a show specifically for Wizard, a short one, like you did for the
Oh,
for the schools, if you don't
oh
mind.
yeah, we also did when we did for the Loyola Park Advisory Council
Mhm.
2 years ago for the Black History celebration online. We did a shorter version for that one as well, and so
Mhm.
that worked out nicely. So yeah, I'll get my puppet pals together, and we'd love to come back for you.
Okay. Well, maybe yeah. Let's maybe consider doing it next week, and then your puppet pals, and it will be the 4th of July, I think.
Yeah,
But but we would really enjoy that.
yeah. We'll definitely talk, and I'm
Yes.
super
Mhm.
excited. Thank you
Mhm.
again. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Tristan Tom. Be safe
Thank you
and
so much.
thank you.
Thank you.